Make up mind.
Hey there everyone, this is Opal, and I just want to quickly give you guys a quick explanation and reasoning as to why this video exists and its purpose, because I know for the past few weeks I've been saying a lot of things about videos I've been working on. I was making the Dragon Ball Raging Blast video and the Mario 64 video, and I kind of just want to explain why I'm working on this video instead in the meantime. If you want to skip the explanation and get straight to the Q&A, then I'll put a timestamp here on screen, and unlike the Pizza Tower video, there will actually be a timestamp. But if you're interested in hearing why I'm making this video, then I feel like it's important for you to stick around because you might miss some important context otherwise. Basically, I work at a movie theater in real life, and the release of the Mario movie was absolutely insane. I worked about 5 days in a row and ended up taking a shift. I was in at midnight some days, back in the early morning the next days, and it was just really crazy. The release of the Mario movie was insane, and it caused me to end up losing a lot of time on working on videos on this channel. When I wasn't working, when I had gotten home from work, I was so fatigued and exhausted that I didn't feel like sitting up at my computer and working on a video. I just wanted to lay down on my couch or my bed and just watch YouTube videos or play a mobile game or something. So I didn't really have time for about a week to work on any videos, and I want to keep the momentum on this channel up. So I thought I'd do a quick 3,000 subs Q&A. Thanks a million for 3,000 subs, by the way, to kind of get some content out in between me making my current video and actually getting it out. So yeah, we can move on to the actual Q&A now, and I hope you guys enjoy. We got about 15 questions with some meme questions mixed in, but I am going to answer every single one. And if you want to ask me any more questions beneath this video, you're more than welcome to do that, and I will try to answer it in the form of a comment reply rather than a fully edited video. Thanks again, hope you have a fantastic day before, during, and after watching, and let's roll. First question's a really interesting one, comes from Burger, great name and profile picture, who asks, when the video starts, we are shown an outline of 3 to 4 people before cutting to you. Who are the people outlined? And I think this is an interesting question because I've been expecting to get it for a while, and I've had an answer prepared for a while, and it's funny to finally have someone ask it. Pretty much, the 4 characters shown at the beginning of my videos in the form of a white outline are characters from pieces of media that I particularly enjoy, that I feel define my brand or my, identity as a content creator. The characters in order are Kishibe Rohan from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, who is my favorite anime character. Also because some of the earliest videos on this channel that saw any modicum of success were JoJo videos, and I kind of wanted to honor that. Followed by, I believe the next one is either Travis Touchdown from No More Heroes or Leon Scott Kennedy from Resident Evil. It's one of the two, who are just 2 of my favorite video game protagonists. And the 4th one is the Chosen Undead, or the Knight Armor from Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 is one of my favorite games of all time, so I just put 4 characters who I felt represented my brand and my identity as a creator, while also representing some pieces of media I really enjoy. We got a JoJo, a No More Heroes, a Resident Evil, and a Dark Souls. The reason that Paper Mario is not in there, despite it being my favorite game, is because I felt like if you outline Paper Mario, like his sprite or his model from that game, you just kind of get a blob, like a jumble of shapes. It doesn't really read. Whereas the other ones, I feel like if you were familiar with the characters or the renders I was using, you could probably tell who they were with enough perception. So yeah, that's the answer to that one. Thanks for the question. The next question comes from Jonathan Aguiar, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, who asked, what's the funniest thing or gag in Pizza Tower that really made me laugh the first time I played it? And I mentioned this in the Pizza Tower review, but there's a lot of individual drawings and frames and animation in Pizza Tower that fucking killed me. Like ones that weren't even necessarily jokes or something the game really dwells on, that just really got a laugh out of me. I remember thinking that the technical difficulty screens were really funny, especially the ones with the ice cream and the one with Peppino and the cast, but the one that really got a big laugh out of me was definitely the back to that guy screen. The fact that it's so deliberately stupid, even by the standards of the rest of the game. The fact that it's only on screen for a few seconds, maybe a second at most. The fact that it's just this little jaunty, little goofy tune that accompanies it. It's just so funny. The back to that guy screen fucking kills me, and I'm surprised it wasn't one of the things from Pizza Tower that became a big meme, because I think it's really funny. Chaos asks a very interesting question, which is, do I think I'll do YouTube full-time one day, or is it just a side project? And here's the thing. I am deeply interested in turning YouTube into a primary revenue source very further down the line. But as of right now, obviously I've only got like 3,000 subs, and I'm making some money from YouTube, definitely, but I'm not making enough to live on or anything. As of right now, YouTube for me is a fun side hustle and creative project that just happens to make me some money on the side of my main job in real life. The main concern to me as my YouTube channel currently stands is just to make videos that I'm interested in making, because I think making videos is fun. I'm passionate about video games and I want to talk about them, and YouTube is the best outlet for me to do that and also get concrete feedback on how to improve. Later down the line, if this channel like really blows up and succeeds, I'm interested in turning YouTube into a full-time thing. Like, you know, this is obviously way into the future. I wouldn't do any of this anytime soon, but maybe later down the line when I have like a few thousand more subs, maybe make a Patreon or start accepting sponsorships or anything. But for right now, it's simply a fun side project that, yes, does make me a little bit of money, but is mainly for the creative and, like, you know, the expressive merit of it, being able to talk about things that I like and just being a fun creative project. Average Joker asks, considering how I've stated that Paper Mario was my favorite game, have I thought about doing any sort of retrospective on the franchise as a whole? And this is an interesting question because I kind of am and kind of aren't. I am very interested in doing retrospectives on the 1000-Year Door and Super Paper Mario specifically. I've actually mentally scripted some stuff for 1000-Year Door and just thought about what I would say about it, but I don't have any idea on what I'd say about Super Paper Mario, so I'm definitely interested in doing that. As for the later games in the series, it's actually physically impossible for me to record them. The Wii U games because my Wii U gamepad is broken, and the 3DS games because 3DS capture cards, which are the third-party hardware you need to record 3DS games, are not produced anymore because we're out of the 3DS generation, and they are exorbitantly expensive secondhand. We're talking like several $1,000s to get one of these things, and that's just not money I can seriously consider investing for what would essentially boil down to a few reviews of 3DS games, especially now that the 3DS eShop is down and it's going to be harder and harder to get 3DS games to review. I just really can't justify spending that kind of money to record them. And once again, the Wii U games I can't record because my gamepad is borked, but I am interested in doing 1000-Year Door and Super Paper Mario. Lilac asks, what setup do I use for audio, and do I have any tips for someone just starting out? So my audio is funny because up until I think after the top 6 poison users video, that video and everything before it, I used a really shitty USB headset microphone and I just didn't see the problem. I thought like, oh, it sounds fine, you know, it doesn't sound great, but it's good for my purposes. And then at a certain point after that video, I decided I was consciously going to take my YouTube career more seriously. So I ended up picking up a proper interface and a proper XLR microphone, which is the studio quality stuff that a lot of high-end YouTubers use. I know it doesn't sound great compared to some other YouTubers, and that's both because I just kind of have a naturally unappealing voice, and because I'm not entirely sure what settings it's supposed to be on. I still haven't figured that all out yet. But as for the products themselves, I use an Audio-Technica AT2020 cardioid condenser microphone, and my interface is a Steinberg UR12 USB audio interface. Both of these are kind of outdated these days. These are about 5-year-old hardware, so if I remember properly, but they work for me, and getting all of the stuff I needed for them combined in total to around $300, which if you're really investing in audio stuff, you could end up spending way more than that. But I also recognize that not everyone has $300 to blow on this audio equipment for their dream YouTube video project. So if you're not interested in spending that kind of money and you want some tips for starting out, I'd say look up lists of like best USB microphones or best USB headset microphones for podcasting or recording videos. Listen to the samples they give you and pick what would be best for you. Like, I obviously just made fun of the USB microphone I used for years, but I did grow my old YouTube channel, which got up to 24,000 subscribers using one of them. As long as you're comfortable consciously knowing that it could sound better with more of a financial investment, I'd say using a USB headset is perfectly fine to start out with until you establish enough of a baseline to start investing into more serious industry quality stuff, if all that makes sense. A suspiciously moist carpet asks, what are my top 5 games I play but don't want to or can't justify reviewing? And I don't really have a concrete top 5 for this, but I do have my list of top 20 favorite games of all time here, and there's definitely a few games on this list that I could very realistically never see myself making videos on, either just because I don't have enough interesting stuff to say about them, what I would want to say has already been said, or just it would be too massive of a project for me to undertake. Looking at this list, I can definitely tell you I wouldn't want to make videos about Earthbound, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance, Final Fantasy Fantasy XIV, Omori, Bloodborne, or Celeste. Once again, all 6 of those games are on my top 20 favorite games of all time, but I could realistically never see myself making videos about them. For Earthbound, it's because I feel like everything that's been said about that game has already been said, and I couldn't really iterate on it. As for Metal Gear Rising, I feel like both the meme culture around that game has kind of really weighed on the online discussion around it, and because of all of like the political stuff in the game, I feel like wouldn't make for a great YouTube video, both because of the potential debates it could invite, and because I'm not a very politically minded person and wouldn't have much insight to offer on it. For Bloodborne, it's just because there's a lot to say there, and I don't feel like I'd be able to do it justice. For Final Fantasy XIV, it's once again because there's a lot to say and I couldn't really do it justice. Also, I have like 700 hours in that game, and I haven't finished the main story of all the expansions yet, and I really wouldn't want to go through and record like several hundred gigabytes of footage of me playing through the entire thing again. For Omori and Celeste, it's for very similar reasons. It's because those are very heavy games that get into the weeds of some very serious and very potentially triggering topics. I have no problem discussing that stuff in private or with people who are comfortable with it, but I don't really feel like video game YouTube videos that are meant to just be fun retrospectives on games are really the place to do that. Also because just describing what makes Omori and Celeste so good kind of takes away from the natural experience of playing them and seeing it naturally, if that makes sense. So yeah, those 6 games are my favorites of all time, but never expect videos of them on this channel. Miss Slasher asks, do you have any comfort games that you always seem to go back to? And if so, what are they? And this is kind of funny because my comfort games are all my top 5 favorite games of all time. These 5 games I could infinitely see myself replaying, never getting bored of them. There's always being down to go back in and play through them again, even though I have mountains of other games I haven't played on that I'm sitting on. These 5 games in order are Celeste, Resident Evil 4, Dark Souls 1, No More Heroes, and Paper Mario. I've played through all of these games more times than I can count, and be it for their nostalgia factor, just how fun and breezy it is for me to play through them, even something like Dark Souls at this point, or the fact that I've already played through each of them multiple times and know the ins and outs of all of them, are just games I can always see myself going back through to relax and let some steam off. JC Plays asks, what's my favorite childhood game? The one game that either got me into gaming or reminds me of my childhood. I feel like I've said this a few times on this channel already, but I feel like it is worth reiterating because the game is super important to me, but it's Paper Mario. It's, once again, favorite game of all time, and it's a game I played a lot as a kid. My family played a lot around me as a kid. My family still continues to replay alongside me to this day. This brings me back to being a kid anytime I play through Paper Mario. I love that game. Ryan O'Rourke asks, are there any games that I feel get too much hate, and conversely, are there any games I feel don't get enough hate? Yes, there are. The games I feel like get too much hate are Fallout 4 and Kingdom Hearts 1. I'm not too deep in the weeds of the online Fallout community and really tuned into what people's opinions on them are, but I do know people fucking hate Fallout 4 and view it to be just this absolute disaster that ruined the series. It's a terrible game, awful garbage, just play New Vegas instead. And for me, I've always liked Fallout 4 more than the average bean. I understand it's not great for roleplay and the story's way more linear and less interesting than other games in the series, but for me, I really like a lot of its characters. I love Codsworth, I love Hancock, I love Nick Valentine, I like Piper, I even like Preston Garvey to some extent. I like Fallout 4 just more than people generally tend to, and while I do agree that New Vegas is objectively the better game, Fallout 4 is the Fallout game I can realistically see myself going back and replaying the most, just because as far as its gameplay and its combat and navigating the world feels, it feels like the most consistently fun for my sensibilities, and I want to stress that that's not rooted in any degree of objectivity. I understand that New Vegas is a much better game in virtually every scale, but for my personal preferences as far as what I like in a game goes, I just like playing through Fallout 4 a little bit more. As for Kingdom Hearts 1, I really like Kingdom Hearts 1. It's my favorite game in the series, and it really gets my goat when I see people review or retrospect the game and say like, oh, this game's better all skipped if it wasn't for the story stuff. Like, yeah, it's a little clumsy, it's a little clunky, and it doesn't feel as good to play as Kingdom Hearts 2 or 3, but I just appreciate the sense of mystery and atmosphere that Kingdom Hearts 1 has, even though it's like obviously goes on to inspire this really lengthy series with this really complex winding story. Kingdom Hearts 1 just has this air of mystery and intrigue around it that I really appreciate, and I even think the combat's more fun than people give it credit for, especially late game. As for games that I feel don't get enough hate, I don't feel like any piece of media really deserves abject hatred. I think getting blue in the face angry at video games games or movies or anything is kind of silly, but I do think there are some games that people tend to ignore some faults in when it comes to objective criticism, either due to this common sentiment around it or due to nostalgia, and for me, that game would definitely be Pokemon Gen 2. I'm kind of mixed on Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I like those more in general, but the original Gold and Silver are legitimately my least favorite Pokemon games to go back and replay. Like, I would rather replay Vanilla, Diamond, and Pearl than Gold and Silver. People get so stuck on the fact that there's 2 regions and you can go through and go on this big adventure through Johto and Kanto, and then you can fight Red at the end and Giovanni comes back and all that. They forget that there's a lot of problems in Gold and Silver. There's way too many useless gimmick or prop Pokemon that are useless to use in a playthrough. The lack of EXP in the region makes it so late game you pretty much have to spend several real-life hours grinding. There's a few insane level jumps, especially late game, where like the 7th gym to the 8th gym, and then the 8th gym to the Elite Four is like a 25 level gap, and they don't give you any natural space to fill it, so you will end up grinding. There's a few really annoying difficulty spikes. A lot of the Pokemon just aren't that cool, and the ones that are, or that I would feel like using, are locked behind trade evolutions or other complex means of evolving them. I just don't like playing through Gen 2. I'd much rather play through Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where they ironed out a lot of these problems, but as far as a game I feel is more deserving of criticism than people give it, I would definitely say Pokemon Gold and Silver. Rathaloo asks, what is my video game Mount Rushmore? Say it with me, guys. Paper Mario, Resident Evil 4, No More Heroes, Dark Souls. Those are the 4 games that built the foundation for my current love of games and the kind of games that I love. Also, Madeline from Celeste can be the Statue of Liberty. Thank you for your question, I appreciate it. Zayorboom asks, how do I feel about Zardy's Maze? So I'm actually not too tuned into the indie horror game scene. I don't want to sound condescending, but I feel like I've kind of outgrown it. A lot of those games tend to be cut from a similar cloth from my perspective anyways. Stuff like, obviously, FNAF, Andy's Happy Apple Farm, or Burger, whatever that game with the apple is called. Fucking, what's another one? Ganban's Wonderland, or whatever, like Garband something, I don't know. I don't keep up with those games. As far as they go though, Zardy's Maze looks a little more interesting than the others, and it's probably the one I'd be the most inclined to play out of games like that. Bluebacks asks, Pepino or Gustavo and Brick? Pepino all the way. Gustavo and Brick are fun for the individual sections of the game they're designed for, but I feel like Pepino is more versatile as a whole, and there's a reason they made him the primary playable character. Lintka asks, Undertale? Question mark? I'm fine with Undertale. I haven't played through it since it first came out, but I don't think it's this embarrassing, like, cringe thing that people make it out to be. I think when you remove it from the context of how the internet treated it for a few years, it's a perfectly fine indie game with some innovative concepts, some really good music, and some fun characters. That said, I haven't really been inclined to go back and play through Undertale since I first played through it in 2015, and even though it's free, I haven't touched Deltarune at all. They just haven't really given me any reason to want to go and play them again, if that makes sense. But as it stands, I'm perfectly fine with them. I don't think they're cringe, I don't hate them. I think they're perfectly inoffensive indie games that are good enough to deserve the reverence they've gotten. John the Wizard asks, are there any bad, obscure, or not fondly remembered games that I'd go to Matt for? Yeah, SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. It's literally in my top 20 favorite games of all time. I don't think Battle for Bikini Bottom is going to rewrite the 3D platformer genre. I don't think it's amazing. And I think Rehydrated specifically has some really glaring polish issues and things that weren't fixed up from the original in the transition to the remake. But for what they are, they're incredibly, surprisingly competent. And I think anyone who's a fan of 3D platformers, whether or not they're a fan of the cartoon it's based on, could really enjoy them. Jimbles Natrombo asks, am I musically inclined and do I play any instruments? I'm actually not. I am completely talentless beyond my base level video editing and scripting skills. That's why I'm trying to become a gaming YouTuber. Ivo Mansuelo asks, am I gay? No, but I'm not straight either. Why, you looking for a date? No, just joking. For real though, I'm demi-bi. Hey all, I'm actually recording this outro on the shitty microphone I used to record my videos on. Thanks a million for all of the support so far. This channel has absolutely crushed any expectations I could have had for it going into it, especially since we're not even a year out from when I started seriously posting. So thanks a million times over. Hope you all have a fantastic day before, during, and after watching. Thanks again so much for 3,000 subs. Here's to more. Catch you all later, and I hope you all have a fantastic day before, during, and after watching. Thanks and cheers.